Hello, and welcome back to another video about the weird side of Disneyland. If you missed it, I did produce a video earlier this year where I went around the park pointing out the small and obscure details that make it so unique and special. I appreciate the smaller amusements like the coin-operated fortune tellers and marionettes, or the weird, often overlooked elements that you can find throughout Mainstreet USA. Disneyland is a relatively small park that feels massive because it's packed with details, and these small flourishes add a lot to your experience because they feel hidden away, something that most park goers won't observe or notice throughout their visit. But if you choose to explore and find them yourself, you'll feel rewarded for having done so. Disneyland is a place where details and hidden elements aren't just found throughout all of the rides, but also manage to manifest in strange and weird ways in unlikely places. So, in the previous video, I did end up missing quite a few things, and because I managed to spend a few days there after my most recent West Coast trip that I've just gotten back from, I thought that doing a bit of a short follow-up video might be interesting. This isn't the usual long-form video essay that I would normally do because I'm really just looking to quickly highlight some things that I found to be of interest. So go ahead and hit the like button if you haven't already done so, and let's take a brief look into even more weird details you can find throughout Disneyland Park. Previously, I put forward my opinion that while Mainstreet USA in the Magic Kingdom is quite iconic, it doesn't even begin to compare to the version in Disneyland, which is just absolutely packed with detail. A lot of those details are actually quite weird and unsettling, such as the Emporium mannequins, but I did find a few other oddities throughout the land on my most recent trip. As soon as you walk onto Main Street from the entrance and turn right, going into the Opera House, you'll see a temporary display celebrating Disney 100, as in the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Disney Brothers cartoon studio. This display features concept art and props from attractions throughout the history of Disneyland that ranges from the earliest park model to attraction concepts all the way up through today, such as Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. However, a curious device on display is the caged old hag, and according to the plaque, she was first introduced to the Main Street jewelry shop sometime in the mid to late 1970s. When children got close to inspect the cage, a cast member would push a hidden button behind a desk to activate the figure, which would rattle the cage and try to entice visitors to open the lock and let her out, although of course there was no way for park guests to actually open the cage. The figure itself was moved eventually to the Villain's Lair gift shop in Fantasyland, and then finally to New Orleans Square, where it disappeared sometime in the early 2000s. According to the plaque, it was lost to time until it was found recently and refurbished. While she doesn't appear to move, at least as far as I've seen, it is interesting to see a piece of weird Disneyland history on display. Staying in the same building, this is where Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln resides, which, while not the most interesting show, is notably historical for having premiered at the 1964 New York World's Fair. Obviously, the show has seen many updates throughout the decades, but oddly enough, it incorporates elements from the American Adventure. Personally, I find the American Adventure to be so disgustingly nationalistic in such a hokey sort of way that it's essentially one big comedic meme to me that I can't take seriously.
Damn, listen to my abolitionist brother. What? Pa, he's gonna make a real good Philly Yank.
We got a good cause, Johnny Reb.
Quiet, both of you.
When I first watched Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln and heard the song Two Brothers from the Civil War segment playing, or when the show concluded with Golden Dream as a projected eagle flew around the room, the show became an instant favorite to me because it essentially took on the meme status of the American Adventure, and I can't take a lot of its solemn segments seriously.
When the repeal of the Missouri Compromise aroused me as I had never been before.
Before the show begins though, park guests have the option of waiting at what I would describe as a pre-show room where a short film plays, highlighting both the importance of Frederick Douglass, which is a very recent addition, as well as describing Walt Disney's personal reverence for Lincoln and providing insight into how the show was developed for the New York World's Fair. Within this room are a number of displays, one of which is the Spirits of America, a series of tiny replicas from the statues found in the main theater at the American Adventure, which are meant to celebrate the American spirit through representing different aspects such as freedom or individualism. It's a weird detail in that incorporating the American adventure so heavily into Mr. Lincoln is just inherently ridiculous to me, completely cutting through the serious reverence it's attempting to convey. Also, the pre-show lobby does contain a scale model of the US Capitol building, finished in 1935 by George Lloyd of Belleville, New Jersey. The bricks themselves were carved out of cane stone quarried out of Normandy, and the model was developed from photographs and blueprints provided by David Lynn, the 7th architect of the Capitol who served from 1923 through 1954. While impressive, I don't think that too many people will bother to read the plaque and discover that this is actually a pretty old and historically significant model, one that's just sitting in a corner of Disneyland that most people won't actually visit. To finish up this segment on Main Street details, one of the better known quirks has to do with the light bulbs found on the exterior of the refreshment corner. It's just a small quick service counter, but many Disneyland fans will have known that due to the odd number of light bulbs that alternate between white and red, only one of them is painted half red so as not to mess with the symmetry. Again, it's weird, but it's a nice little thing to look for and point out to people who might have not otherwise known about it. Part of what makes Disneyland so charming isn't just its big e-ticket rides like Space Mountain or the Haunted Mansion, but the smaller, often overlooked attractions that help fill out your day and can actually be some of the best experiences. I'm personally a fan of attractions like the Storybook Land canal boats, taking you around small dioramas of locations from animated Disney films, or the Davy Crockett Explorer canoes around the rivers of America, which are actually way more fun than you would probably anticipate. However, an often overlooked attraction is the Sleeping Beauty Castle walkthrough, something that I think most parkgoers are probably unaware of, especially since its doorway is so inconspicuous. Immediately, on walking through the door, an open storybook in a display case introduces you to the birth of Aurora, and it becomes clear that this walkthrough will be a retelling of Sleeping Beauty. On walking up the stairs, you'll discover the first diorama, which depicts the scene of the king and queen burning all of the spinning wheels in the kingdom, fearful of Maleficent's curse on their daughter. If you're unfamiliar with the film, most scenes are accompanied by a storybook that provides context. Moving on, visitors can see a rocker with baby Aurora inside, as the three good fairies modify Maleficent's curse, and just a bit further, the story progresses as Aurora is grown up and pricked by the spindle on the spinning wheel, cursing her to an unshakable slumber. Moving up another staircase to the center of the castle structure, visitors emerge into a larger chamber where they can view two scenes. First, the three good fairies put the castle court to sleep until Aurora is awakened, and moving on to the second scene, you can see Aurora placed in the bed of the tallest tower. Leaving this section, you move through a small hallway with windowed doors that lead into the dreary chambers of Maleficent's castle. The middle door plays a sound cue of a castle guard laughing if you pull on the handle, and the final door allows you to glimpse the top of a guard's spear as they patrol outside, as if from the perspective of Prince Philip imprisoned here. Moving down a staircase, the next scene portrays Maleficent summoning demons in a thorny thicket to impede the now escaped Prince Philip from entering the king's castle to save Aurora. The next two scenes look into Maleficent's castle, showing a revolving storm of cursed spinning wheels, and a look into a chamber with a green flame, which I believe is intended to convey Maleficent's dark magic as she transforms into the dragon. Soon, visitors encounter a scene with Prince Philip and his horse as they hide from Maleficent in her dragon form, and with her implied defeat, the next scene around the corner shows him kissing Aurora, waking her from her cursed sleep. Moving down a final staircase, the walkthrough concludes with its final pages right as it leads back outside. This attraction did not open with the park, but actually opened in 1957, offering similar but simpler dioramas to what is provided today. However, an interesting element of its history is that the attraction was overhauled and reopened in 1977, now telling the story with scenes done in a different style and fleshing them out with doll-like characters. This version lasted until October of 2001, when it was unceremoniously closed, and the attraction seemed to have been abandoned until it was announced that it would reopen in 2008. Restoring the scenes to the original style, but with added effects, which is the version that you can currently experience. So essentially, the current version is pretty faithful to the original, but with added projections and lighting effects to keep things feeling modern and dynamic. While an often overlooked element of park history, the Sleeping Beauty Castle walkthrough is one of those hidden things that allow you to feel like you discovered something excitingly obscure, and is an unsettling, atmospheric, short attraction that is always fun to experience every once in a while. In the previous video, I discussed the novelty of coin-operated amusements, ranging from the shooting exposition to the fortune tellers found throughout the park. However, if we return to Main Street, I do think it is worth noting that the electricity machine in the Candy Palace has since been removed and replaced with mutoscopes. If you happen to not know what these are, they are essentially short films that play when you insert a penny and crank a lever. Right across the way, a grip testing machine sits against the wall, which I believe may be new, as I don't recall it being there previously. However, if you move further into the Candy Palace, one element I didn't previously speak about is the organ, which is actually kind of a big omission because it's quite large and is located directly next to the Pinocchio marionette that I highlighted in the other video. The organ itself has a coin slot that doesn't accept coins as it seems to be on a timer, and it has a small display that lets you know what the next song will be and how long until it plays. If you notice, I filmed this in September and the song selection is Halloween themed, which means that the playlist is changed out on occasion. The organ itself was built in 1915 and is actually an interesting piece of history known as a Welte Mignon. While not the first, it is still a revolutionary piece of mechanical technology that didn't just play the notes of a song, but was also capable of musical subtleties like changing tempos, phrasing, and dynamics, among other features, which is quite impressive for an automatic instrument. So the next time you find yourself on Main Street, don't overlook such an interesting piece of history like I did. Continuing the topic of coin-operated machines, if you move to the Royal Hall meet and greet space, which is an extension of Fantasyland right off of the hub, there's another small machine themed to the Hunchback of Notre Dame, known as Clopin's Music Box. It actually doesn't accept coins, but it's the same style of interaction. If you spin the handle on the wheel, the characters move as an internal music box plays, with characters in the background alternating between the gargoyle Victor and a man from the crowd. If you move around the corner on your left and look up, you'll spot Geppetto's cat Figaro, lounging on a small balcony next to a caged blue bird. Occasionally, both characters will move and make sound, but it's another small and charming detail that is easy to miss. One last coin-operated machine that I missed last time brings us over to Adventureland. Hidden in the back of the Adventureland Bazaar, a small alcove hides Aladdin's other lamp, with a banner hanging above it instructing visitors to rub the lamp and insert coins to receive the genie's wisdom. You don't actually have to touch the lamp, but after you insert 50 cents, the jewels light up and a voice emanating from the lamp will provide you with a vague fortune in an uncertain tone, as if he doesn't really know what he's talking about. When I tried the lamp, the genie uncertainly predicted that I was going to become the king of Denmark, but the spiel also apparently occasionally makes references to Bengal Barbecue, Indiana Jones, and the Jungle Cruise. At its conclusion, a magical sound plays and smoke is released from the lamp, which fills the space above. The lamp is not as interesting as the other fortune tellers, especially since they leave you with a card as a souvenir, but it's still a fun experience. Since we're in Adventureland though, I think it's time to point out one last interesting detail. If you're a fan of the Enchanted Tiki Room, then you might recall that when the cockatoos descend from the mobile in the ceiling, one of the perches is missing a bird and has a name tag on it. Throughout the show, the birds make a lot of offhand comments, speaking about things such as the tropical hideaway, and in this case, Jose asking what happened to Rosita, who is implied to be a missing cockatoo. Well, in 2018, Disneyland opened the Tropical Hideaway as a new quick service location, which actually has excellent snacks, including a rotating menu of delicious bao buns. However, if you walk into the seating area into the river where the Jungle Cruise is located, you'll actually spot Rosita as an animatronic figure sitting on top of cargo. Occasionally, she'll either sing short tunes alluding to her time as a singer in the Tiki Room, or will otherwise crack bad jokes and puns that relate to the Jungle Cruise. Like many of the details I pointed out, there's a good chance that most parkgoers won't know of her existence, and I think even fewer will make the connection that she's the missing cockatoo. So, that wraps up this short video on the weird and obscure details that you can find throughout Disneyland. maybe there is potential for a third follow-up video sometime in the future. So if you found this interesting and have something I missed that you want me to check out, be sure to let me know about it. As always, you can do me a favor by leaving a like on the video, and if you haven't yet subscribed and hit the bell notification, you can do so now to be alerted to new videos as they release.